I found myself traveling again. I don't know why I'm yelling. Why am I yelling? Oh, I got a new lapel mic. I've had a couple of travel adventures this summer doing some work, and I actually enjoy traveling, but I don't normally do it. It's been kind of a rare exception this year that I've done quite a bit of it. This job is a little bit of an anomaly. I haven't quite tackled something like this before, so it'll be interesting. I've been doing this for a very long time, about 20 years, this type of work, and I've run into just about every type of job there is. Every once in a great while, maybe once every 3 or 4 years, I run into something that I've never experienced before, and this is going to be one of those. So there's always a little apprehension about doing that which you haven't done before, but I'm up for the challenge because my work is very much of a redundancy. I finish one job and I move on to the next one, and it seems like over and over again it's like the same stuff. It's like Groundhog Day. So it's different. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy the mix-up of that which I haven't conquered yet, for lack of a better term. So it'll be interesting. When I get down there, it's going to be a couple of days work, and when I get down there, I will follow up on this video with that which I will be taking care of, and then when I finish, I'll show you the finished product. Kind of keeping a bit of a secret because I don't know. There's some stuff I don't know about it, even though I was relayed a lot of information. I haven't physically seen it, so it will be very, very interesting. And I won't be completing the job, by the way. There won't be any type of before and after stuff. It's just kind of a little prep part that I'm doing for this customer who feels a little uncomfortable doing it himself. So there you go. I don't know. I've been on the road now for about 3 hours. I've got about another 2.5, 3 hours to go. Oh, by the way, if you've noticed something different, as I showed on my last video, or at least audio anyway, I got a brand new mic, a lapel mic, because I have had some complaints in the past, a lot of complaints in the past, where people said that they couldn't hear me because of my intro music, and so I decided, well, let me kind of squish that and get a lapel mic. I wish I could found a remote one. I have this wire this very long wire that I have to use, and I would like a wireless one would be nice, but this one will suffice. It plugs into my camcorder pretty good, and it's very, very loud. I had it actually up here by my neck, and it was quite loud, so now it's probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 inches down on my shirt, and it's probably still quite loud, but probably better to have it louder than not to. So it's kind of experimental, and if it works out, then I will continue to use it, if nothing else, so that people can hear me better. Also, another thing too, for some of you that can't hear me on some of my videos, I realize that on my phone, when I watch videos on a phone off of YouTube, it's not that clear. Yes, there are some audio issues in regard to your phone, but if you watch my videos on a laptop, or you're able to plug in your laptop to your TV, which I can do with the cord, then what I found is that it ends up a lot louder on a laptop, and there's not really the issues that you run into listening to YouTube off of your phone. So there you go. So I'm going to continue on with my drive, and when I get down to where I'm going, I will videotape that. I will videotape the first part, and I will videotape tomorrow the last part, because it will be interesting. Not should be, it will be interesting. And this is a big surprise that I was leading up to. This will be a curbless shower with a lineal drain in the center. On video it's not easy to understand how humongous this shower is, but from left to right it is 8 foot. From this drop off here to the very back it is 8 foot. Actually 8 foot and about 3 or 4 inches on all directions. It's a very, very large shower. So what they did when they built this house is they intentionally built the slab 2 inches lower over here. If you can see on the edge here, that's about 2 inches, maybe just a tad bigger than 2 inches, which is perfect. A lot of times people will hit me up, can I build a curbless shower on a concrete slab? No, you can't. The only way you can do it is to take out your existing slab and make it lower than what it currently is. When they do convalescent homes and places where they already know there's going to be wheelchair access or needed, you know, they do exactly what has been done here prior to all the building being done. And this is the most perfect, ideal situation you can get into. However, that 2 inches for this span right here going down to the center of the drain, that 2 inches is not quite large enough. I would have, if somebody had asked me, I would have said 2.5 inches on that, possibly even 3. The more profound the slope, the better. There are some definite complications that will that have already come up from here. You're going to notice a couple of oddities here. One being that there is a secondary drain, and you're like, well, what's that for? Well, that's the tub. Yes, the tub will be encompassed into the overall shower area. So this tub will actually set, I believe, right at the edge here, and it will drain in the middle. The middle will be right in this area over here. There's a flexible line that will tie into this 1.5 inch pipe, and that flexible line will go up and over and up where the tub is at. There's a skirt on the tub, so the tub will sit pretty flush to the floor, although there'll be a slope. So this tub has adjustable legs. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's about 8 of them. There's 2, 4, 6, 8 adjustable legs. So the front legs will go up a little higher than the back legs, although the slope on here won't be as profound as it will be over here. Yes, that is different. It's an acrylic tub. Actually, I think it's fiberglass, so it's impervious to water. Unlike most drains for bathtubs, this will actually get filled in, this box area, which normally you don't want to do because you want to be able to access the plumbing later on if need be. You want to be able to do what you need to do, but obviously that can't be in an open environment with water in there, so that will be concreted in as well as this trough. This is the fixture for the tub, and okay, so they're going to have some type of spout. It looks pretty high up. It's about 3 foot up, and the spout will go over the tub, I'm assuming. Anyway, this shower is probably, I'm going to say it's definitely the largest I've ever dealt with. This is the size of, say, a walk-in closet, a large walk-in closet. I don't know if the video is really going to show the humongousness of this. This is also a diverter and a mixer, and it goes to the shower head where I have my light currently, and then the diverter goes to a rainforest overhead on both sides, his and hers. So it's awful close to the opening, which again, if they had asked my advice, I would have had it more center, more toward the drain area, but you know, it is what it is. There's a few other little oddities of this. The lineal drain is going to fit right there in the center of the pipe. There's a rubber gasket that goes on the inside of that that's actually holding the drain. That's why it's not moving around a lot. I mean, it's bouncing, but it's not, I can't take it out because that gasket has anchored it in. Just like any other drain that we're used to dealing with in this business, it comes with a clamping ring, and in this case it's a clamping square. And if you notice, it has a bunch of troughs both on the front and the back, and those troughs are for water to evacuate. It also has weep holes, and it also has the bolt These larger ones in the corner are for the bolts when you clamp the ring on. So, like any other drain, it's got the 4 bolts, and it's got this little indentation here where you put caulking in. On a normal application with one of these drains, as with any drain, you would put your pan liner over the top of that, and then you would search around for your bolt holes, the way I do anyway, cut a little X and then push your bolts through that pan liner so you have all that, and then you run a bead of caulking inside that little trough area. Then the clamping ring goes on top of it, and it sits down right inside where you put your caulking, and then you bolt it down. We're not doing that here. A couple of reasons we're not doing that here. We can't do it here. First of all, the pan liner at best is 6 foot long, if you could even find one. They do make them, but they're hard to find. This is 8 foot long, so I would need at least a 10-foot piece to be a foot up on both sides of the wall, and a foot up over here, and a foot to overlap over here. That's a humongous pan liner, and yes, you can glue them together, but I'm not always keen about gluing them together if not need be. I can't do it here for a couple of reasons. The main one is that I don't have the room up here. There's no room to get that pan liner to go up and then over. And then in addition, we can't put the pan liner over because this whole bathroom area is just going to be concrete slab the way you see it now, bare slab. The customer does not want to put any tile. There's never going to be anything on this except bare concrete. I think they're going to seal the concrete, and that's all they're going to do it. I don't know. They might stain it. Either which way, this is just pure concrete, and then it just literally ties into the tile right at this edge. So this is marble, hexagon type marble, and that's about 1/4 inch thick. So that 1/4 inch is going to set right at flush up against the curb there. Well, it's not a curb, but against the concrete. And because that sets flush up against there, that detracts, and then if you have mortar on top of that, thin set rather, that you have to put on there. So now you're dealing with less than that 2 inches, which is why I said earlier I'd rather have it a little deeper. Either which way, that's another reason we can't use a pan liner, because to use a pan liner would mean that you wrap it over and overlap it onto the top, and we can't do that. So that's another little complication. This is a good tile, a mosaic type tile like this, to actually put on something like this so that it slopes down to where the drain's at, and it will go on the entirety of this floor. It's a challenge. There's a challenge for a lot of different reasons. This is part of the reason, because of the depth or lack thereof. The other challenge is this tile must be able to butt up against. Anytime you have a square or rectangular drain, then I usually can't do my little taper off of my pieces going around and set the tile up higher than the drain. The tile must go flush with the drain, maybe just a tad above it. And in order to do that, this whole thing has to be set down. I'm going to cut off this pipe, and this whole thing must be set down so that the end result is when I screed out my mortar, because there has to be a slope going down here, when I screed out my mortar, that mortar will be right below here. So this gives you about ½ inch to deal with both your tile and your thin set. So say the thin set is here and your tile is here. So it's going to be very particular. I have to do this exactly just right in order for everything to work. Probably I'll probably end up screeding my thin set or my mortar. I'll probably go right about there, just below that, to give a little bit more wiggle room. It's better to have a little more wiggle room than not enough. So this lineal drain will set just like that. Once I figure out my parameter, then I'm going to bury all this stuff in concrete, bury that in concrete, and then I'm going to set my mortar slope down like this. If you can imagine a V, like this and like this, all the way down. It's a little different, and because it's different, a little care has to be taken. Now, the other complication is that you have such a large area to screed out. In order to screed this out, you would have to get an 8-foot long 2x4, something like that, so that you can kind of move it back and forth and get the whole thing even and level. Level meaning level as far as left and right goes, not down this way. What I have decided to do instead, after contemplating it for a couple of hours, is I'm going to treat it as if I were doing it in sections, kind of like a sidewalk or something like that. So I have these 1-bys. The 1-by I'm going to anchor in somewhere around there. Then I'm going to have another 1-by that's going to go somewhere around here. Then I'm going to have 6 sections. So each section will go from the edge of here all the way down to the trough, from the edge of here to the trough, and from the edge of the trough, all 6 directions. And before this can harden up, probably, I don't know, 5-6 hours, I'll pull these out and then fill in the gap. I think that's the best way to go. Trying to do one large section of this is going to be problematic, both for the mixing of the mortar. This is going to be very porous, so it's going to suck in moisture. Having said that, I have a whole bunch of quarts of this concrete bonder and fortifier, primer if you will. So I'm going to brush and roll this on this entire thing. But that's what I'm into, and I'm going to get started on putting this down first, roll that over the entire thing, let that dry out, get my drain right, and then I'll pour in the trough in the tub area. Just in case you were curious about what tile is going to be going here, we have 2 different tiles, and this is a glass tile which is going to go on this wall. That tile will go on this wall staggered. I think that's about a 3" by 12, and that's going to go on the entirety. This is a 12-foot ceiling, by the way, so that's going to go on the entirety of this wall staggered. The entire wall will be this glass tile. This is a marble, and this marble will go on the left and right wall staggered in the same way, 12 feet up. So 12 feet with this on left and right and the glass on the rear. That's pretty wild. It's going to look sharp, but it's going to be a lot of work for somebody. Now the primer has been added. If you see it, it's a little milky, and it will dry up eventually, and then once that's dried up, give it about an hour or so, I'll put a fan on it, and it'll be ready. My drain has already been cut. If you look down there, the flange is level with the floor. That wasn't where I was getting at. I was trying to get to the bottom here to make sure that that width was in line with the tile and the mortar and all that stuff when I get done, and so we're level as far as the drain goes. But that's going to have to be kind of anchored once all the concrete is poured in there. Then that's going to have to be anchored down a little better. But yeah, ready for the concrete pour. Like I said before, the trough and that back drain will get poured with concrete. Screed that out, let that set up really good, and then I can start setting my boards in here. There'll actually be 2 boards. I think I said 3 last time, but there's going to be 2 boards, so there'll be 6 sections, and I'll do probably 3 sections on the back first, and then the last 3 sections on the front. And now, hours later, this portion is done. What I said earlier about putting in the concrete where the drain is ultimately going to be. Even though this drain is actually flush with the concrete, that wasn't intentional. When the actual drain part, the barrel of the drain, gets pushed down in there, there's still enough room for not only my mortar, but also for the tile and the thin set. There's more than enough room. So I pre-measured that, cut the drain down the size, and then stuck that in there. So that is embedded into the concrete, which I poured both the bathtub area and the trough here, and these are the boards solidly wedged down in there. So I have the 6 areas that I'm going to be working with, and that's it. I will put a fan on this overnight, and tomorrow I will put my mortar in, and I will be back at that point. It appears that my plan is unfolding pretty well. One thing yesterday that I didn't quite get to was that in order to have the drain here, because the drain is going to be my mark, my benchmark of where the bottom of my mortar goes, with that little part of the edge of the drain being the tile and the thin set. My boards weren't set right. I just thought I could willy-nilly line them up in thirds, but that's not the case. So once I stuck the drain in there and anchored it very well, then I had to move my boards back. So I'm still in the same plane of thought that I was before and doing it in 6 parts. The problem is I can't get to all 6 parts in one day. So what I've done here is I've done the back part, and that has, you can tell on the board there, it has a slope coming down. Screeded that. I mean, you know, I spent some time doing that because I can get to it from the left side and the right side, but I can't get to it anywhere else, and so it's not the easiest thing. So I'm going to spend the next hour and a half or so doing the same thing to this side. Then these 2 sides need to dry before I can move on to the left and the right over here. And then I'm probably also going to have to have some type of fake drain thing going on so that I still have a parameter of where my slope goes, or maybe I'll be able to tell exactly by my line and my mortar where I'm going to go up to. All I'm going to have is the edge of the drain instead of the full length of it. So unfortunately, that's where I'm at with that. This has not been... I'm not a mason, I'm a tile setter, although I work with cement products all the time. And I've done pads for air conditioning, and I've done pads for garbage areas and things like that before, and I'm relatively adept to doing masonry type work. This is not a one-man job. To get my 2x4 in here to screed out all this and get it all to the point where it's level, and I'm going to grab my level. First of all, you're going to see, it's 4 feet exactly, but you're going to see where my bubble goes up to the first hair there. So we have a very slight slope, and then when I'm down to the end, it kind of drops off to the point where the tile is going to stop. And I did that on purpose. The drop off is all the way down so that when the tile goes down, that there is a little extra thin set going on down there to take up the difference, so that it's a nice what do you call it, that with the amount of thin set down there is not troweled out really thin, that it's kind of thick, so that the tile will stick really well. There's always the issue of the tile being around where you walk on, possibly coming loose, so I'd rather have that little dip down there. I kind of did that as I went along. So as I move this along, you can tell that it's flat all the way across, and the bubble is in the same place. And if I kept on going, you would have the same result, that it's flat all the way across, and that the bubble is up on the top hair. And that also goes the other way as far as level goes. So my bubble is level going all the way down as well. So this is as good as it gets with what I have to work with, and I still have enough girth around that drain that I'm not concerned about any cracking or thing going on. Oh, also the drain, the way it's set now, when I do this other part, you know, you push up the mortar up against the drain barrel as I did it behind it, which you can't see, and I'm going to do in front of it, so that everything is level. This is just slightly off. If I push down on it, it'll be level. There we go. And then I want it also to be level this way, but I got to grab my torpedo level to do that. But that's the basic idea. With the tile and the thin set, even though you see where the bubble goes up to that first hair, with the tile and the thin set, there could be a little bit more bump up with the tile, with the thin set back here, and then the thin set could be even smaller as you get here. So that pitch could be a little bit more profound if they wanted to once they set the floor tile. But right now I just have the minimal pitch that I'm able to do in order to get it up under. You have to understand, I have enough room for the tile and the thin set up under that 2x4 plate, because that's the same exact distance as this is, and since the tile is stopping here, it has to be that way all the way around. So that's the reason I couldn't get more of a pitch going down that way, but it is working out. It's just very laborious. So I shall be back. And my second side is done now. Took a while to get it down to the point where I wanted it. It's a replication of the other side, obviously. So there's a very small gap up under the drain all the way down. That's just a little extra buffer room, as I said before. So when the tile goes down, this is sloped with a little half an inch or so, half an inch of room, playroom there, if you will, so that the thin set and the tile could be flush with this concrete, which is the whole idea. And the tile just gradually slopes down to where the drain is at. Overnight, this will dry, and like all sand topping mix, almost all sand topping mix, if there's little inconsistencies, if there's little high spots or whatever, which there shouldn't be, you know, I checked everything prior to packing things up, then I can scrape it off a little bit. But again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Any shower pan that you do, there's going to be some manipulation with your thin set and with your tile to get it down to the drain and get the proper pitch that you want. This one is just a little different. No, this one's a lot different from any shower pan I've done before. Once this has dried very well, I'm going to say normally in my work I'm able to give about 3 days drying time. Because this house is still under construction, the longer the better. I would advise that this not be red guarded until it has cured for probably a good part of a week. You know, get this extra strong. Spray it a couple times with some water every day, and just kind of get it to the point where it's really strong. Because it's not really encapsulated well the way a normal shower pan would be, and because it's so large, I don't want there to be a crack. If there's ever a crack in this mortar, that crack will transfer through the tile, and that wouldn't be a good thing. So anyway, I'm going to clean up, get out of here, and I will be back tomorrow to do those 2 sections and these 2 sections. Once that's done, then I'm done. This is the next day after I poured both sides of this. I think the front side ended up a lot better. Like anything, once you try something once, then you learn by your mistakes. I'm not going to say mistake, I'm just going to say that, again, with regard to this particular job, I haven't done something like this before, so this back area, a little rough looking, although the look really doesn't matter too much. I did notice a slight concave, if you will, so I penciled out where that's at, if you can see the pencil marks. So it starts right about the center where the drain is at, and it just kind of, you know, there's just little dips going on here up to this point here, so probably about 13-14 inches wide from 8-9 inches. So that area there, I will screed out some more material there to get that more flat. It's a small little thing to me because I get focused in on little details like that, but in the end it wouldn't really matter when they set the tile, or if I were setting the tile, as it were. I would just trowel out my thin set regardless of that small little dip. It would be minuscule to me. But if you look on the edge here, if I can get in the light, if you look on the edge, it obviously slopes down to about 3/4, maybe 5/8 of an inch down here, and then incrementally it goes up higher and higher and higher until you get down to the end. There's a small gap up under the sill plate there, the 2x4, because specifically the tile is going to go up under there, and then it should be flush with the top of that 2x4. And that is because we need to replicate this. This goes all the way around, as I said before, with that plate sitting right on top of it. And because this tile is going to be flush up against the concrete, then that tile must also be flush up against the 2x4, because that's where the mark is at all the way around. And that's the reason for that small little gap. This tile will match up against there with another 1/4 of an inch thin set. So the idea is that the thin set gets troweled out to the point where you're flush with the edge of here, and then it's kind of pressed down, and the thin set incrementally gets thinner and thinner as you go down this direction until finally you get to the bottom of where the drain is at. So that's the idea. I'm not going to do this in sections as I said I was going to do. Again, things changed, your plan changes and everything. I said I was going to do it in 6 sections, and I'm actually doing it in what was it, 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. So this being 1, 2, this will be 3, and this will be 4. I thought about having something down here to replicate the drain so I know where my stopping point is at, but it's really irrelevant. This is only about not even quite 2 feet. So all I have to do is get right up under the drain like I did with the front and the back, and then just trowel it out, get it down to the slope, same as I did on the other side, on the front and the back. And I am finally finished. I got this in here pretty good, a lot easier than the middle part was on both sides. The reason being is I actually had an edge to butt up against the 2x4, and then I had the flat part of the concrete, so I could take a 2-foot level. This is right at 2 feet too. So I could take a 2-foot level and I can kind of screed out. I could have used a 2x4 or anything, but I used a level and I could screed out so that's exactly the same plane as here, and of course in the back same plane also. So the sides were much easier. Part of the reason I'm going through all this explanation of this very different type of setup, if anybody out there ever decides to do something like this, at least there's one video online where somebody has gone through the painstaking process of doing this already. Sometimes it's the only video. I remember I had to repair something and there was one video of how to repair that thing. One person had posted a video, so that's why I'm doing this. Because it is a learning curve that my customer wasn't comfortable with. I had some apprehension about it as well, and once I figured out a way to make this happen, then it wasn't as bad as I thought it was, but it's a lot more work than I thought it was. Last night when I screeded out this area right here, I couldn't tell at the time, or I didn't pay attention or whatever, but I had a low spot over here, so that's the reason that that mortar is still wet. So I was able to fill in that low spot. As I filled in the little trough area right where the drain is at, I had intentionally made, yesterday I had made it go down kind of profoundly toward the end because, well, a couple of reasons. I couldn't really screed this out to the point where I wanted it right below, if you can see here, right below where the drain cap is at. I really couldn't make that happen with the way that I was doing it because I had this end over here to contend with. And so now you see the end, and now you see the reason why I waited until these sides were done before I did this. But I wanted it completely level across there so that the tile, there's enough room for tile and thin set to get it flush with the top of the drain. And tomorrow there's a little discrepancy on the sides here, both on the left side and the right side, and so that discrepancy will be filled up tomorrow, where this dips down to here and where this dips down to there, and where they meet you can see the discrepancy. So I'll fill that in and kind of level that out with a little pitch going this direction, and I'll do the same on the other side. I won't do that with mortar, I will do that with thin set, and once all this is dried and cured for about 5 or 7 days or so, at that point the red guard will be painted on, and the red guard will be painted probably 3 coats. 3 coats will be the shower pan liner. This is supposedly, or what it was called anyway, what I call it, is a shower pan, but in reality this is called a pre-pitch. And this is the final product. This is the last day of my work, which is getting all this floor level and sloped. I came in earlier today and I spread some thin set out, as I said I'd do yesterday. Spread some thin set out from the point where it starts to drop down on both sides, and then there's a small slope going down to the edge of that drain. And then in the front, I noticed I had, like in the corner, my bubble was kind of level, so
I put a little thin set there, and now I put my level on it, and we're good all the way around. And then as well as the back, there's a little level thing going on, so I spread some thin set out, but I still have room for my final thin set on my tile. If you see up under there, you have plenty of room for spreading thin set and tile. Let me see if I can get my camera. I don't think I can get my camera at a point like that. But anyway, the level is currently sitting on top of the drain, and it is sitting on top of the concrete, which will be flush. The tile will be flush coming down. And there's about 1/2 an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch gap down below, all the way across. And as we get down here, it tapers down to maybe about 1/4 of an inch. So this 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch or so, will be the thin set, and that lines up with the edge of the tile going up to the drain. So there's that much room for thin set. So that's the bottom line. We have a bubble off level, which is good. It's not as much as I wanted it to. If, as I said already before, not to be redundant, but if this could have been 3 inches up rather than 2, it would have been a whole lot better to get this slope. By the way, there's going to be a panel of glass, I believe, was it 2 feet? I think it was 2 feet or 30 inches out or something to that effect on this side, and then another 2 feet or 30 inches on this side. So there'll be an opening here, probably about a 3-foot opening, that will allow people to come in and out. So any of the water runoff where the shower heads are at and all that stuff will be encompassed within this glass area and will never come outside this area. And then all that water has an easy egress down to the drain. So it is done. It is complete. It is finished, finito, and I am out of here. This was interesting, so I hope somebody out there has learned something from this. It hasn't been a waste of time me filming it or a waste of time you watching it. Interesting. This is the second time this year I've worked in Florida, and it is also the second time I worked in Florida where they had a beehive on their property. The first time was in a hollowed out tree, wild bees, and this time it's domestic bees. My fascination has never waned. I'm still fascinated.